Hello, today is April 24th, 2018. I'm meeting today with Mr. Luke Bolinger at his home in Windsor, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer for the Northern Colorado Veterans History Project. Welcome, Luke, and thanks for sitting down today to tell your story.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate you coming in and giving me this opportunity.
Very good, cool. Let's start out, if we could. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your date of birth, where you're born, a little bit about your family.
So I was born November 8th, 1985 in a little town, Brush, Colorado, which is about an hour and 15 minutes northeast of here. Grew up on a farm. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked on the family farm. We grew corn, a little bit of hay, but mostly feedlot corn. My early days, we ran cattle, so I grew up a farm boy. You see all these Facebook posts on about you've never worked a summer until you've thrown hay, and I'm like, okay, well, check mark. Like, I've thrown hay, been out at 3 a.m, setting water. We had all back in my day, it was just flood irrigation. So at a very young age, had to set tubes, and at the county fair, we had the tube setting contest that the young farmers put on every year, and the Bolinger boys were always, first or second place with that. So, that's how I grew up. I grew up, rural Colorado, and I loved it. Branding cattle. Like I said, we ran cattle for a long time. Actually, the guy that kind of ran cattle for us, Kent Stegner, was a Marine on Iwo Jima. And before he passed, he wrote an autobiography, and that was one of the most moving things, and nicest guy.
Wow.
So just kind of the way I can relate those memories back to Kent, and he was a great friend with my dad, and it was just a great way to grow up. I wish I could give my kids that kind of life. Growing up on the farm and working with Dad. My first job was with Dad. He paid $5 an hour. And driving tractor, setting water, doing cleaning up stuff, and branding cattle, moving cattle around. So graduated from Brush High School. Yes, my mom was one of my English teachers in high school, so that was always people always ask me that right off the bat. Was your mom a teacher? Yeah, she was. She's my English teacher. Did you get an A? Yeah, you betcha I got an A. So graduated in 2004. And I enlisted in the Marines, right out of high school. So.
Well, and was that due to your friend? I mean, what prompted you to?
So my uncle, Colonel John Skelly, retired. He was full bird colonel for, I think he ended his career around 22 years. I think he really. Every time I saw Uncle John, I was just mesmerized by Uncle John. He was just so well spoken. I mean, he was an officer, so at that time I think he was a major. He was always just so well spoken, and you spoke about the Marines, and you were just like, and I think that's what really kind of prompted me to be like, maybe look at doing that, because really through, you start thinking about freshman, sophomore, junior in high school, like, what do I want to do? Do I want to go to college, and what do I want to study in college? But I was always one of those guys who was just like, I don't know exactly what I want to do. I know I didn't really want to farm.
Okay.
As much as I loved it growing up, I didn't want that. My oldest brother, Pete, he breathes, lives, will die farming. I mean, it's in his blood.
Yeah.
And I always knew that Pete was going to be the farmer in the family. And I have an older brother, Adam. He was kind of the same way, where he didn't really want to farm either. So by the time I got down there, I was just saying, I love farming, but that's not what I want to do. So I was always one of those guys that just didn't really quite know what he wanted to do.
Okay.
I had dabbled in Parks and Recreation. That was basically my second job, adult softball umpiring.
Okay.
That's where I got my start in Parks and Rec. And but at that time I didn't know that's what I wanted to do either. So looking back, when I was in high school, I was overweight. I was never very athletic. I played sports and whatnot, but I was never, the best at anything. I wasn't really good at anything, but I loved playing sports. And, looking at the Marine, I had people tell me that, I'll never be able to climb that wall, or I'll never able to do a pull up or anything like that. So that kind of fueled my fire a little bit too. And so my senior year, I joined the wrestling team, knowing that I was going to enlist, or I'd already enlisted. Actually, I already signed the paperwork, and that's how I kind of got myself into shape, and in preparation to ship into boot camp at the end of my senior year. But I think looking back on Uncle John really kind of lit that fire for me, because I just saw this officer, and he was so, and I considered going through the platoon leaders class, going to college and becoming an officer. I actually started the process of going to the Naval Academy, but
oh wow,
and looking back, I don't regret my decision one bit to enlist versus going officer route. Nothing against officers versus enlisted, but I just felt that it really put me on the path of kind of where I am today. So I really look at that time in my life, those freshman, sophomore years in high school, because I was in a wheelchair for about 6 weeks after.
Really?
I used to be really bow-legged. My mom has this VHS video of me running, and I run like this. I would run like what do you call those things that you keep time with the piano?
Oh, right, yeah.
That's how I looked when I ran. So we tried all these kind of different doctors, and they said, because I had really bad knee pain too. So then my dad took me to Stedman Hawkins Clinic in Denver, and they said, well, we can fix this. And this was in 2001, because right before September 11th.
Oh, wow.
And the doc said, we can put staples in the outsides of your knees, so you will, because I was growing so fast, that your legs will grow on the insides but not the outsides. And so I had this surgery scheduled, and then 9/11 happened, and then that delayed the shipment of the staples.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to have my surgery delayed. So anyway, I went through that surgery, spent 6 weeks in a wheelchair, kind of rehabbed myself a little bit, and then I'd still people tell me, you'll probably never do this, or you'll never do that, and then I was able to enlist, and started talking to a recruiter my probably junior year, and I remember I missed football practice because I was up at MEPS, the Military Entry Processing Station up in Denver, and I had to go through there I think 3 times because I couldn't duck walk, and I had trouble squatting, and there's something else that I had trouble with. And they kept saying, well, you're almost there, but you can't duck walk. And I remember, my dad kind of helping me, like, with flexibility and trying to get, being able to duck walk. And finally I was able to do it.
Wow.
And so as much as I wanted to join the Marines, there was always these 3 little obstacles, where there was my weight, or was there, it was duck walk or lunging or something like that. Cause I just never really that strong, or never really that athletic, and I took a lot, and then I joined the wrestling team, and I think that's really where I got myself in a really good shape before I went to boot camp. And still, it was a challenge for me when I went to boot camp.
Yeah, with all these physical challenges, I mean, and to really join probably the most physical of all the service branches that's pretty amazing.
Like, I couldn't do a pull-up in high school until I was part of the wrestling team in my senior year in high school. So that was like a huge compliment, and I struggled with pull-ups through my entire career until the latter half, when I finally learned the balance between nutrition and physical fitness and whatnot. But yeah, that was definitely a challenge. So so left off in high school, but senior year, signed the papers. I remember I missed football practice, and I told my coach what I was doing, and he's like, "Did you really enlist in the Marines?" I said, "Yeah, here's my enlistment papers," because I had to show him proof that I missed practice, and he was like, "What? You got to be out of your mind." Coach Strice was pretty surprised that I enlisted. And I remember when, my parents were aware that I was enlisting, so this was probably October-ish. It was in the fall, and I remember getting home and showing my dad the enlistment papers, and there's that one line in there where injury or death could occur by serving in the military, something along those lines. And my dad was so angry. He was so mad. He was like, "Do you realize what you've done? Do you realize what you've done?" And he got so mad at me for enlisting, but he turned out to be one of my biggest supporters.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, he went full on Marine dad. Yeah, he was. He was. My mom was just like, well, here we go. But I remember Dad being so mad.
So this is roughly 2003, 2004.
2004 is when I.
And we're just getting into the thick of things overseas. I mean, were they worried about that fact that things are flaring up and now
you look at again, I'm going back in my day. You didn't have the constant news, the social media, and the 24-hour news cycle. I feel anyway. Maybe I just, because I was a high school kid, I didn't pay attention to it as much, but I really feel like that we knew all of that. That stuff was going on as much. We knew we were at war in Afghanistan, and then Iraq was starting to pick up at the time. I think the invasion was 2003 was the initial invasion. So that thing they knew there was a potential for us to go over there. But I was also enlisting in the reserves too. So I thought, hey, calm down, Dad. Like, I'm in the reserves. Like, it's not going to be a big deal. It's the one weekend a month, 2 weeks a year kind of deal. Because again, I wasn't 100% sure. I didn't want to enlist for 4 years.
Yeah.
I wanted to do the 6 years and do the reserve side, because I was still considering an officer program too. So I wanted to give myself plenty of options, because I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with my life, but I wanted to have those options. And again, if you ask me, well, would you have rather just enlisted and done your 4-year contract? I said no. I would have done exactly what I did, because I love being in the reserves, because I got to do a lot of different things and figure out exactly what I wanted to do. There's a big stigma about reserves versus active duty, but I served with some of the finest Marines in the reserves because they had dual lives.
Yeah, right.
And that was a big challenge, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But that was a great choice. So yeah, November of 2003 ish is when I signed my papers, and Corporal Mayhew, who I'm still friends with today, took me up to MEPS, and I swore in, and then I spent the next, the wrestling season kind of getting ready, because I would ship off right after May.
Right after graduation.
Wow. Yeah. So I had an EGA, I had like USMC and Semper Fi on my graduation hat, because you got to decorate your own graduation hats, and had an EGA that I had found, uniform EGA, super glued on my graduation cap. So I think it was like graduation party, and then I worked a few weeks in the summer, and then I shipped off for boot camp. So I got to have like 2 big parties and with a couple months. So
wow.
Yeah, it was a really fun summer, because I knew what I was doing.
Yeah. At
the end of it, I was going to be going off and doing some awesome things that I, with my family especially, we traveled some, but we never traveled a lot.
Right. Yeah.
And my dad was in the military. The military connection we had were 2 uncles, both officers in the Marines actually. My other uncle John, my mom's sister's husband, he was also an officer in the Marines. So he was another influence too, Uncle John Wolf. And then, so those are the only 2 military connections that we had. So summer of 2004, worked for my dad, worked for Brush Parks and Recreation, and then had a big send-off party, and got in the van with Corporal Mayhew and some of the other recruiters and some kids from Wiggins that I went to boot camp with, and kind of just drove to the airport, and let's see, I can't remember. I remember going to, so let's see, we went to MEPS, and then, it was all hunky-dory. We're going on a trip and flying on an airplane, and then they kind of give you your tickets, and they said, just go. Like, get your tickets to San Diego. So, yeah, we're going to San Diego, get on a plane, fly out there, and you're kind of by yourself. You don't really have any leadership. You just know that you're supposed to be in San Diego at this time, and then you land, and then I think that's when stuff got real, and it was like, oh shit. And that's the point where you're like, what the hell have I done?
Yeah.
Because I think went down to another gate, maybe picked up luggage, and then it was like that. There were the drill instructors that were just waiting, or other Marines that were like, get on the bus, and the whole get on the bus, get off the bus. That's when it starts right there. When we land in San Diego, and that's when you're like, oh shit, what did I sign up for? And they're like, put your freaking heads down. Don't look around, yada yada. Don't do this, and don't nobody talking. So you're sitting in like a Greyhound bus, and you're sitting like this, and you're like, oh god. And so they don't know they don't want you to know where they're going. And get on to MCRD San Diego, and you're kind of peeking out the windows, and you see the other recruits that are on fire watch, and they're walking around barracks. You're like, oh my god, I'm on a military base, and then park. Doors open, and 4 or 5 drill instructors. I mean, it's just like the recruiting, the videos that you see on Nat Geo or something like that. Yeah. Get off my bus right now! Hurry up, grab your stuff! And I mean, it's just chaos. There's backpacks flying and shirts flying. And take your friggin' hat off! And run off the bus, and then you land on the yellow footprints, and that's when you know you've arrived. And it's like, put your heads down, got your sides, and they're just barking at you and yelling. And as you advance in your career as a Marine, that's what everybody talks about.
Yeah.
Like, what was your experience like?
Yeah.
And everybody has just a little bit of a story, and then they ship you off into a big building, and you have these big red bins, and it's like the amnesty period, like if you brought like cigarettes or tobacco or whatever, and they rifle through all your stuff. They took all the pictures out of my wallet. I had a picture of my girlfriend at the time, and they were like, saying some very inappropriate things about her, and I mean, just going through stuff, and then they issue you all your gear, and then you go get the traditional Marine Corps haircut, where they're yelling this entire time, and it's like, they're doing the countdown to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're done, stop moving, and if a kid like hiccuped, there would be 3 or 4 drills. I mean, that's what they lived for.
Yeah,
they lived for just mashing kids. It was. I look back on it, and there's some great YouTube videos actually out there that are kids getting yelled at, and I'm just like, I remember that. So yeah, that was August 4th, or no, August of 2004. So you arrive like on a Sunday or a Monday. And you have this, I think it's called an in-dock platoon or something like that. So it's basically, you get all your gear, your uniforms, you learn how to march, you learn where the chow hall is, and you don't pick up with your actual training platoon right away until what they call Black Friday. And so you kind of learn the ways of being a recruit, and you don't get boots right away. You have to wear tennis shoes and go fasters. So you don't get to blouse your boots or anything like that. So all the new recruits, it's buttoned, the blouses are buttoned all the way at the top, and it just looks very weird, but it's like, oh, that's a new recruit, that's first phase, second phase, third phase, you get to do certain things to look more like a Marine, but you look like and no knock on ROTC kids, but you look like a bunch of ROTC kids because you're not wearing your uniform quite right, and it's called baggy, and you really haven't filled it, all this different stuff. So, and then I remember the day. It was had to be August 13th, 2004 is when I picked up with Platoon 1010 in Alpha Company in San Diego, because it was Friday the 13th. So,
really?
And my recruit number 13.
Really?
And that was just because they went by alphabetical order, and my recruit number. So they take away everything personal about you. Mm-hmm. You're part of the Marines. You're not an individual anymore, so there's no we, I, me, it's this recruit or these recruits or anything like that. So it's that period of breaking down a Marine and to build them back up. So yeah, that I always tell people, 13's my lucky number, because that was my recruit number in boot camp, and it's written on some things that I have around. You'll still see some 13s.
So talk a little bit about that. I mean, all the Marines I've interviewed over the years, they talk about how I remember one World War II veteran saying, they broke me down to a puddle of clay and then remolded me.
Yeah.
What's that like? What?
It's a culture shock. It really is. Yeah, and there are nights when you're sitting in your rack, just like at point of tears, sometimes maybe tears, like, what the did I do? Like, I have 13 weeks of this. How am I going to make it through? There's always somebody yelling at me. I don't have any me time. There is no me.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as me.
Yeah.
You're always moving. You're always doing something. And, I mean, it really is. It's a culture shock. I mean, it's nothing. Nobody have ever experienced it other than Marines. And I will take that to the grave, because there's no experience like these three giant individuals, and some of them were some drill instructors, but they may be 5'5", but they're giant because they're just so powerful. They're cut, they're in shape. I mean, there's these just rock solid pictures, and a guy could be 5'5", but when he comes at you, he's 10 feet tall. And with me, I was automatically the troublemaker, because I was this big tall guy that wanted to fight everybody, and so I automatically got picked on. But I was actually able to develop a pretty good relationship with my drill instructors, because they have certain billets that you fill. So there's one recruit that's responsible for all the supplies, and the name of that closet is escaping me right now. And there's Marines that are in charge of the head, or there's Marines in charge of this section of racks or whatever. And usually they pick the smallest Marine to be the house mouse, which is basically you clean the drill instructors' sleeping quarters in the barracks.
Okay.
Because they have barracks room, it's their office, right? But since they had this giant 6'8" Marine, or recruit, excuse me, they said, we're going to make you the house moose. So they made me the house moose instead of the house mouse, and so I developed a pretty good relationship with. I still name him. Staff Sergeant Mora was our I can't remember what his title was, but he was our drill instructor that did all the drilling. Sergeant Baeza was our we called him our kill hat, he was the new drill instructors are like the ones who go around barking and are the mean guys, pit bulls. And then Staff Sergeant Hester was our senior drill instructor, and he was the one that had the black belt.
Oh wow!
So he was kind of like the other two were really mean and nasty, and Staff Sergeant Hester would come, try to
good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just to kind of. And then of course we had the series gunnery sergeant and all the command staff and whatnot. But
a lot of respect for those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you think about what they do, and and it's unfortunate that some take it a little too far, but you think about what those Marines are doing. I mean, they're molding Marines. That's what they do, and sometimes we did some pretty stuff. Like. You see again the pictures on Facebook of the racks that are they call it Mount Sarabachi, where they stack up all the racks. We've done that. Change underwear with the kid next to you. Like, it's just about obedience of orders, and that's what that breaking down is. If I tell you to swap skivvies with the guy on your left, you swap skivvies with the guy on your left, because at some point you're going to be given an order that you don't like. I mean, it's that immediate obedience to orders, and that's what that breaking down and remolding is, and that's why they humiliated probably every single recruit in that platoon. If there was a chubby kid, they would bring him out and poke him in the belly and make him do the Play-Doh or the Pillsbury Doughboy sound. I mean, a lot of it's funny.
Yeah.
And like I said, sometimes it goes probably a little too far, but you have to be, and that's what the Marines is. You got to learn to, be a Marine, and that's sometimes part of it is just again just those obedience to orders, and you look at it like, if, for example, shaving. You're taught in the Marines to shave every day. It's not only so you look clean shaven, but there's a purpose behind that, and that is so your gas mask, when you put it on, creates a good seal.
Okay.
A lot of people don't so for all 10 years, at least once a year, I would get out. Even when I was staff NCO, major or something. Did you shave this morning? Like it would, like shaving is the big. If you don't shave in the morning and you're a Marine, and you walk and you've got that 5 o'clock shadow and it's like 11 o'clock, people get mad.
Wow.
So it's, you know, and everything is structured. So, you know, you go to morning chow, you drill and PT, and you're going to classes, and you got your recruit notebook, and you know you're learning the ways of the Marine, you're learning the history, you're learning, you know, introduction to combat techniques, and you do MCMAP, which is the Marine Corps Martial Arts program. So you're going out and getting instructed. You're running the obstacle course. So, you know, and then every week you're doing different things. And then so the first phase is that really that breaking down, and you know, yeah, the World War II vet gave a great example of they break you down and then they start building you back up starting in second phase. They take you down to Camp Pendleton, and that's where you do a lot of the marksmanship training. And you know, looking back, you know, our marksmanship instructors, PMIs is what they call them, primary marksmanship instructors. You know, those guys doing the same thing. You're putting a weapon in somebody's hands, these kids' hands who've been stressed out. So, funny thing about Marine Corps boot camp is they don't allow drill instructors at the rifle range because of, at least they didn't when I was in, because they didn't want, I mean, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. You're putting a weapon in their hand and you're giving them live ammo. So you don't want them stressed out. So the PMIs, again, they're not, you know, they're not yelling at you. They're not stressing you out because you were about to give them a weapon and live ammo. So, and then the second phase is when they kind of start building you back up and teach you marksmanship and teach you how to shoot, and then you do your qualifications. And then the third phase is when that's the really the finishing touches, if you will. If the, you know, artists do the clay model, that's when they're, you know, putting all the fine details in, and you know, you're getting your uniforms fitted for the parade, and you know, the final family day and whatnot, and you know, all those, and then the final drill. I think my favorite part of boot camp was probably the drilling, you know, the marching, and you know, because it's, again, you think about what those drill instructors, you know, their training, what they have to do. You have to tell a bunch of 18-year-old kids to march around in sync and do these succinct rifle drill movements and all that. I mean, hours upon hours upon hours a day, just on the parade deck at MCRD, just all over the place. Kids marching around with rifles and doing rifle. I mean, just hours upon hours. Wow. I still had it, chipped tooth. I wasn't holding my rifle the right way, and that front sight post, you know, that it's a, you know, it's a kind of a triangle. And it's a solid piece of metal, and I wasn't holding it just right. And I'm gonna throw him under the bus. Staff Sergeant Mora walked by, and he was like, "Fix it!" and hit the rifle. Bang! Oh, wow. Chipped my tooth. And still chipped to this day. I never got it fixed. It's kind of like a memory of boot camp. Yeah. Like, I always tell that story. Yeah. I got this chipped tooth in boot camp. But you go through the crucible. Obviously, the crucible is like, you know, when you've made it, really. You know, they don't do the EGA. They don't give you the EGA that you get from boot camp right after the crucible. That's not until family day. But once you hit the crucible, you know, that's all you read about in the recruiting manuals and whatnot. But you know, it's just that 3 days of just, you know, here's whatever 6 MREs, field trip them down, and you do the whole team building, and everybody's running the mud and everybody's just running the dirt. But it's a big, huge sense of accomplishment.
Wow,
I mean, it really is. It was a great experience. I was telling my buddy the other day, I would love to go back to boot camp.
Really,
I mean, 3 squares a day, wake up, drill, you know, work out, learn some stuff. You know, it was great up until the crucible, and maybe some nights where the drill instructors were feeling a little chippy. You get generally, you know, enough sleep. So, yeah, other than people yelling at you, I wouldn't mind going back to boot camp and, you know, going out to the range and spending a sunny California afternoon. Now, you don't tell an 18-year-old kid that, you know, but me, I'd be like, oh, that'd be great, because, you know, PT every day. And
so they were changing you mentally. How were you changing physically? Did you see a change?
Physically was a challenge because I was a diet recruit. They made you wear a little tag on your blouse if you were a diet recruit. And it means you couldn't get certain chow, and you were limited on chow. I think the mindset back in the day was eat less, lose weight.
Yeah.
Where now we know it's probably a little bit more of a balanced diet. And I lost weight, but I didn't gain any muscle back because it was just lose the weight. And it was a challenge for me because I never really I tried to diet before, but now it was a forced diet. And so I remember my mom and dad didn't even recognize me. I think I weighed about 205
at 6'8"?
Yeah, at 6'8", and I was a stick. It was really odd looking actually. And physically, I wish I would have known then what I know now about physical fitness and diet and whatnot. Just because I just lost weight. There's not a lot of opportunity to get big and build muscle, unless you're kind of already like that. But I know guys that were like that and they lost weight just because they were eating and then doing stuff, and they weren't in the gym pumping iron or anything like that. So, but I was definitely probably not the healthiest weight, but I've been more physically fit in Marines, but not at boot camp. That wasn't the big. I could run. I could run 3 miles, no problem, and I could do pull-ups. I still couldn't do pull-ups very well, but yeah, it's just a weird, stickly, gangly creature.
Huh.
I was fortunate enough. Going back to that relationship that I built with the drill instructors as the house moose. I did get a promotion right out of boot camp to private first class because I was the most improved recruit. So you can say, I'll tell you I wasn't that physically fit just because I know what true physically fit is now today.
Right.
But from when I came to boot camp 13 weeks later, I was the most improved recruit.
Really? Oh, wow.
Physically, and grew myself as a leader, and the drill instructors recognized that and put me in a promotion to private first class. So
wow. That
was my first promotion that I got right out of boot camp, which was kind of nice because I got the one stripe on my arm and walking around. And, the other kids they don't have anything on their sleeves yet, and I was rocking my one stripe, so I was pretty happy about that. Then family day rolls around, and your family comes in, and
the folks came out for it.
Yeah, and they do this big run. With the low rider leo, and everybody's screaming and yelling, and the all the families get to watch you run in, and you're doing your moto cheers and everything like that. So it was a lot of fun. And then you change it to your chucks, which is the short sleeve khaki shirt and olive slacks, and that's when they do the EGA ceremony where they actually give you the Eagle Globe and Anchor, which that's the moment. That's the you see the recruiting videos where the EGA gets placed into a hand and they grasp it like that. It's really, I'm getting just goosebumps just thinking about it, just because that's when wow, I made it. I'm a Marine now. I can call myself a Marine, and I think that's the best feeling in the world. When you're a 18-year-old kid. Yeah. That's you just went through 13 weeks and you didn't think you were going to make it at the beginning, and I'll go back a little bit. I thought I was supposed to graduate November 5th, and everybody in boot camp gets sick because you're staying in a room with 60 other guys, and I got some respiratory stuff, and I got pink eye.
Oh, wow.
But I never told the drill instructors. I was always able to play it off. I remember putting hand sanitizer in my eye to get rid of my pink eye. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and go to the showers, when you have that nasty crustiness over. And I would remember just putting soap in my eyes and just running hot water in my eyes. And it went away. Because sometimes they'll send you to the medical platoon, push back your graduation date, and I was like, no way, I'm getting out of here on November 5th, and there ain't no way I'm staying here any longer than I have to. So Yeah, putting hand sanitizer in my eye is not recommended way to get red pink eye, but apparently it works.
Wow.
So got my EGA, and you do the family day. You see your mom and your dad and your brothers and your girlfriend at the time, and my uncle came out, and he was VIP, right? We got big Colonel Skelly on deck, like. So he got his little velvet seat up in the box at the parade deck at MCRD. So that was really cool to see. And I got an awesome picture standing with him in his chucks on the day, family day. And then you do the graduation ceremony where you're in your alphas, which is the long sleeve khaki shirt and the green coat and then the green slacks. And do the graduation ceremony, pack up your stuff, and get to go on leave. So I spent a couple nights in San Diego. That was a lot of fun. So that was my boot camp experience.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun. I say that now just because I don't have to ever go through it again.
Right.
But it was definitely a culture shock. Farm kid from rural Colorado.
I was going to ask you if definitely the farm kid aspect of it from living in early kind of an isolated part of the country, but do you think you had an advantage at boot camp being a farm kid as opposed to the city kids at all, or did you see that play in at all?
I didn't really see that because we're again, you're there, you're thrown into the mix. No matter if you're from L.A. or Brush or Yuma or New York or obviously we're all West Coast, so
yeah.
you were there. Like you didn't really. I don't think anybody had an advantage over anybody else.
Oh, okay. I was just curious. Normally with a farm kid, you're up early, you're working hard. As opposed to just curious if that.
I would say there were probably some kids that were like, "How did you make it?" And you said that through your entire Marine Corps career. Like, how did you make it through boot camp? Because you can't read directions, you can't follow directions.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I mean, you're just an idiot. And, there was probably a couple kids that you were like. and so maybe it is the case, but I had the work ethic, so that was that obviously helped me in my not only my career but definitely at boot camp. So
right,
yeah, definitely.
Now during boot camp, were you starting to explore what direction you would go, testing or anything like that?
Oh, so you sign up for your MOS, your military occupational specialty, prior to.
Oh, you do. Okay.
So I already knew I was going in as a radio operator.
Oh, okay.
Which I really enjoyed my time in radio, but I got this story from a recruiter that was like, "Oh, you can do all this stuff in communications," and I was like, "Oh yeah, like I'm gonna be like a radio engineer," and not the case. But yeah, I knew going into boot camp that I was going to be a radio operator. So then once you get out of boot camp, you get your 10 days of leave, and then you go to your, everybody goes to MCT, Marine Combat School. And basically that's a couple weeks. I mean, you're still kind of treated like a recruit, but at least they call you Marines. You still, you have an instructor, your primary instructor, and, they do the obstacle courses, and they do all the combat training. You dig fighting holes and learn how to shoot various weapon systems. Mark 19 at the time, Mod Deuce 50 cal, squad automatic weapon, the M249. So you learn how to operate those weapon systems, and I remember that was my first exposure to night vision. Again, a rural kid from Colorado, didn't know what night vision was. It would have been awesome irrigating instead of wearing the giant batteries and headlights and whatnot. But yeah, I remember standing in Twin Palms, Camp Pendleton, and looking through these night vision goggles that our instructor has, and I was like, "This is amazing!" And that was back in 2000, 2004.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the greatest dang thing in the world. So I can't imagine, how the technology has changed.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
When I was in my last couple of years, wow, this is not the night vision I had in MCT. So you go through a couple weeks of that, and then you go right to your MOS school, which my MOS school is in 29 Palms, California, which is that's a good reaction actually. So I think they call Butthole of the Desert, what they called it. So unfortunately, I landed at a time where there was no come frock classes, field radio operators course. there's no frock classes picking up until after the new year. But I had no leave because I'd used up my 10 days of leave that year in boot camp on my way home. So I had to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas at 29 Palms, California. And yeah, and that was interesting. I was probably the first low point in the Marine Corps career, just because I was like, man, I'm going to spend Thanksgiving here. But luckily, Thanksgiving wasn't as bad because they had a program where it was basically like adopt a Marine. So you would sign up and say, I can house 2 Marines for Thanksgiving, and they would line up cars outside the base, and then they would drive in and be like, all right, you guys go with this guy. And I hopped, and these people were just kind enough to just drive to the base. They'd get 2 or 3 Marines or whatever, and they would drive back to their house and serve them Thanksgiving dinner. And I wish I would remember their names. I would love to look them up.
Yeah.
I still have a bracelet that the little girl gave me.
Oh, wow.
In my box here. But I got to spend Thanksgiving with a family out in California. So that was really cool. And then they have dinner, and they bring you to their home. It was really cool. Like, they got these strange Marines, and you're going to bring them to your home and introduce them to your kids and have dinner with them, and then take them back to base.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I would, I haven't tried to look them up, but I was good digging through my box, and I was like, there's that bracelet that little girl made for me. And I was like, man, that was really neat. So, and then so I had to spend Christmas there. So I was fortunate enough to get to know some of the senior NCOs that were living on base or something like that. So, there's always have to be Marines on duty. So I was picked up a bill of A duty. So I would be with the senior NCO, and I'd schedule fire watch and make sure the Marines that are still there on base were, because we still have fire watch, even though barracks were empty, you still have to maintain a watch. So I worked a pretty cool shift, actually. It was like 24 on, 48 off, and I didn't have any responsibilities, so I played my computer games and watched movies and worked out and went and got Chinese food from had this great Chinese food in 29 Palms. And they had these lo mein noodles, and man, they're so good. I'm sure they were terrible, but at that time they were good. And got my computer shipped to me, and was on my computer and talked on the phone and did that for a few weeks until after the new year. All the Marines got back and picked up with my frock class and did my field radio operators course, and I picked up a Lance Corporal before I left, and then I reported to, at the time, it was Alpha Battery, 1st Battalion, 14th Marines at Buckley Air Force Base.
Oh, really?
In Aurora. Yep. So, I think frock course was, let's say, 9 weeks, and really basic. How to use a radio, what to say on the radio, and our different radio systems at the time. We were practicing on radios that had been used in, further than Desert Storm. We were some old Prick 104s and stupid Prick 119 giant radio. I still hate those things to this day, man. I tell you, I cussed more at the Prick 119 than I ever did at any other piece of equipment ever, just because there's something about them. You sneezed and it would drop a fill or anything like that. So, we talk about using crypto. You have to encrypt all of the radio signals, and everything has to be timed. Every radio has to be on time, and they have to have a certain crypto fill, and it has to be a certain day, and they just kind of breeze through that, and then they're like, oh, you'll learn that at your unit. Oh, you'll learn that at your unit. And then you're this new radio operator, and you're like, well, yeah, I didn't teach you that in school. No, they didn't. I'm sorry. So anyway, I got to my unit, and I got right into the thick of things, and that was for about 2005 now, and just started. So I got back. Let's see, 2005. It was probably it was springtime. Got to my unit, reported in, and then I started drilling just 1 weekend a month, and kind of figured out my living situation. Lived in Fort Collins with my buddies, and started working for Brush Parks and Rec again, and just as started working from Dad a little bit and doing the farm thing and the recreation thing, and then in probably late 2005 somewhere, we got wind that we were going to get deployed in 2006, and they were looking for Marines to basically come on. I think they called it ADOS at the time. I can't remember that acronym. Active duty, basically serving at the drill center, kind of prepping the unit for a deployment. So I was like, sign me up. It was great pay.
Yeah.
And we lived in Fort Collins. A lot of Marines did. So we would carpool down to Aurora every morning at wake up at 4 o'clock and head down to Aurora, and then come home at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon and drink beer and get up and do it again. And that's when I started, getting in pretty good shape, because go there, PT for a while, and fix radios, and that's where I really developed a great relationship with the command and whatnot. So I did that, and then December 2005 is when we got activated. I have a DVD of me and my dad. I remember first Sergeant Eggerling came up to me like, Bolinger, you're going to do an interview with the news station. And he said, this is what you're going to say about this. This is what you're going to say about this. This is where you're going to be this. And it was CBS.
Oh, really? Yeah.
CBS came, okay. and I think Fox did it too. They came down and interviewed me and my dad.
Really? Yeah.
And my dad's crying and whatnot, and I'm just like, I'm very confident in the unit and proud of the unit, and I'm just like, gun ho America. And I still so fast forwarding about so my dad passed away in 2007.
Oh.
And I had the link to the story in an email, but the link no longer worked. So I emailed the general mailbox, like, hey, this is what happened. It happened in December of 2005. I interviewed with my dad. I know CBS had the story. I lost the link. Is there any way you can get it back to me? Didn't hear anything. This story's gone forever. And I was about to give up on it. And then I think it was on a weird day. It was on a year anniversary. Dad died. It showed up in my mailbox.
Really? Wow.
DVD with Dear Luke Bolinger, thank you for the inquiry. Here's a DVD of the story that we aired on blah, 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 copyright, blah, blah, blah. Sure enough, that was the
wow.
DVD. I still have it.
Wow.
Pop it in every once in a while. So anyway, that was a really neat thing.
Mm.
That I've got an oral history of my dad, sharing that moment with me. And I said a little bit about how he was my number one fan. He was.
Oh, wow.
He would buy Crown Royal and steaks for our CO, and he was part of the family advocacy team or whatever. I mean, anything he could get his hands on, so he would be the first to know, he would do it. He signed up for everything, and he was this liaison for the rest of the families. And
wow.
Yeah, and not to say that my mom wasn't supportive as well, because she had to support my dad, who would be an emotional wreck at the time. But Dad would, my dad had his own dog tags with all of my information on it, and they had to, and he had parentheses Dad. He went to the mall and had it made. But half those letters are probably from him and Mom.
Wow.
Same thing with all my letters from Iraq. We use this thing called Moto Mail, where he would type it as an email, but then it would get sent to me in a letter. And my buddies got to the point where it'd be like, your dad sent you a Moto Mail today? Because damn near every day he would say, it was crazy.
Wow.
And he would literally bawl if I called him and he missed a call. He would write the next day or something like that. I was like, my stupid phone didn't ring. And that was back in the days where, you had the Star Trek phone or even the bag phones that you plug in. My stupid phone didn't ring. I left it in the pickup, and I was so mad. I missed your call, and I cried. And he was like this big tough guy, but he was like a teddy bear, kind of like me. So anyway, so December 2005, we were activated, and it was a big deal. And shit, we're going to war. It really set in. That was... look at the stories that, for example, American Sniper, that was set in Ramadi in 2006, where we were. So, and that was the height of when Ramadi was a nasty place to be, and we're just kind of learning all stuff. We're like, oh shit, we're a bunch of reservists. Like, what's going on? So we go to California and train for I think 3 months. So we were an artillery battalion, or excuse me, artillery battery, but we were getting sent over there to man all the regional detention facilities, all the RDFs. So that's what our assignment was. So we got attached to these. There were 5831 was the MOS. They were basically like prison guards. Basically, that's what we're going to do. Is we're guarding prison. This is a little bit after the whole Abu Ghraib.
Oh right,
stuff came to light, and they wanted Marines manning the RDF for some reason. I guess maybe because we're more disciplined than traditional Army. I don't know, but I'm assuming that's they wanted a little bit of a Marine presence at these RDFs. So our battery was split up into several locations, and then we were in Ramadi. So we went to Ramadi in March of 2006, and we were there for 7 months. And
how was that flight over? I mean, you got this multi-hour flight. You got a lot of time to think. I mean, what's going through a person's mind knowing you're going into harm's way?
You're with your buddies, so it goes back to the training that you get in boot camp. I got my buddy to my left and my buddy to my right, and I know they're gonna watch my back if something happens. And you just have, you've been training together for 3 months, and you've slept next to these guys for months in the rain and the muck, and you've done hundreds of drills with them, and you've gotten tear gassed and sprayed in the face with pepper spray and beating each other up. You've gotten drunk with them, and on the weekends for the past 3 months, and so you just know that they're gonna take care of you. And so the flight was like, we don't have to really do anything. All we have to do is just get on a plane, relax, and go and land in Bangor, Maine. And the folks in that region are amazing. They have these giant send-off. Just hundreds of people that just mash into this tiny airport, and they're waving American flags. It's out of a flippin' movie, man. They're handing out Bibles and wishing you good luck and have snacks and do all these things. It was like, wow, this is amazing. But it was the American people. Like, that's when the support for the military was probably at an all-time high. People showed up for anything military, and those folks in Bangor, Maine are some great folks, and even on the way back to even better.
Wow.
So landed in Bangor, Maine, and then we flew into Germany for just a quick stop, which that wasn't very fun. You think, oh, you were in Germany. We were just at the airport just waiting for our next flight. Turns out our flight got canceled, so we had to sleep on the floor, which we're Marines. That's if you were in the Marines and you never had to sleep at an airport floor or in a hangar floor or something like that because your flight got delayed, then you haven't fully experienced the Marines, because that was the big thing. Was always had to sleep on a floor somewhere because a flight got canceled or a plane got delayed or something happened or somebody missed a mark or something. So landed in Germany, had to spend the night in the airport. And then from Germany, we flew into Kuwait. And then Kuwait, we hopped on. These were all commercial flights. So, and then we landed in Kuwait. I think we spent probably maybe a night or two in Kuwait, getting our last little bit of Subway and whatever else was there. I think it was Subway. It was god awful. We're like, oh look, Subway, let's go get it, because we have, God forbid we go 3 weeks without real food. And then in Kuwait, you hop on a C-130, and I think that's the point where it's like, oh shit.
Okay. Because
now it's like, now you get issued light ammo, and now you're putting on flax and Kevlars, and you land in, can't remember where we landed. Landed in Iraq, and they do this thing called a combat landing, where you don't want to, the planes don't want to be low for too long.
Right.
So it's like and then hop on a bus and take you to where you need to go, where your disembark point for the convoy and where you're going, and then hop on the back as a up armored 7-ton and away you go. I mean, it's all at that point it was it was pretty smooth sailing. But yeah, once you you collect all your gear and you got your 2 sea bags and you're loading all the bags up on the 1 7-ton. You're hopping in the 7-ton and then you do a convoy brief and you're like, oh shit. And you see the guys, the lead vehicles and the couple vehicles in the middle of the convoy. They've got Mod Deuce 50 cals and Mark 19s on the roof, and they've been there for a while, and they're this is just another day at the office for them. But you got all these reservists that are packing up the back of the trucks, and I say, all right, everybody, lock and load, and that's when you, okay. And those first few convoys, you're just ready. You're just ready. Like, okay, something's gonna happen, and then by the end, you're just like, you're sleeping. God, I hope nothing happens and I have to do anything. But trucked into Ramadi and stayed in tents for about probably a couple weeks while we did the changeover from the last unit. It's really funny when units do changeover, because you have all this stuff that you've either acquired or was sent to you, so like Xboxes and TVs and DVD players and all of this crap that you're not going to take home with you because you just bought it from some Iraqi kid or something. Stacks of DVDs and all this other stuff. So guys sell it to the guys. So this is like the 3rd or 4th time that this stuff has been sold. But hey, I'll sell you that TV for $20. Just that's what I paid for it. Just to kind of it's basically like you rent out this TV until the next guy comes in and like, oh, well, I built this plywood privacy door thing. I'll sell you that for $15 or something like that. And stuff that guys can't take back with them, and Xboxes, like I said, and that stuff. And I mean, you could buy that stuff at that time in 2006. You could go to the PX, which was this abandoned store, basically, that was covered in sandbags and the Hisco barriers and stuff like that, and you go get cash out from it was basically like an ATM. You just signed a piece of paper and they gave you whatever money. And so where I bought my first carton of cigarettes. The only carton of cigarettes I ever bought was in Ramadi, Iraq, when I still smoked. But you could go buy Xboxes and TVs and stuff. I remember this one kid bought an Xbox, didn't do the right converter on it, plugged it in, fried the thing, turned around, walked right back down to the PX, bought another one. That's how desperate that's how desperate you were for any sort of entertainment.
Right.
I talk about our job that we had was guarding detainees. So the Army or Marines would roll up, people who were violating curfew, or they caught them sitting in an IED or caught them in a firefight or something like that. They would arrest them basically and take them to the RDF, and we would search them and process them and put them in our system and lock them up and wait until military intelligence determined whether they were a threat, and they would go to either another facility or Guantanamo Bay or wherever they were going to go. But I think we had more time where it was just downtime. So we worked 12 on, 12 off, 12 on, 24 off, 12 on, 48 off. I think that's the way we had three squads that would have each a shift, and that's how we worked it out. And it was actually like we had a really nice system of working in Iraq, and it was a great experience. You talk about the big thing with camaraderie. Is that word I'm looking for? Did I pronounce it right? Camaraderie. Camaraderie.
Camaraderie. Okay.
I always have trouble with that word. I will till the day I die.
Yeah.
But you talk about that and how you build those relationships with those guys. And again, it's guy on your left, guy on your right. I mean, whether you're going out on a convoy or you have to go search a detainee cell and that guy's not too happy about it, these guys have your back. And then, we walk back to the barracks and guys' girlfriends are cheating on them and wives are doing stuff and family stuff, and you lean on those guys. And our squad was a true family. And we played Xbox together. We watched shows together, and we still joke to this day about, we watched all the teen heartthrob shows. We watched the OC, and we watched the Shield, and we watched Orange County. OC. That was the big one. That was a big teen heartthrob show that we watched. But yeah, and you play Xbox with the guys, and you go to the chow hall, and you go to the gym, and you find your 1-2 good buddies, and then the rest of the guys are, that next level down. I mean, it was an intense experience.
What were your living conditions like?
So we lived in an abandoned barracks building that we just repurposed. Pretty much, you built your own rack. Each person kind of had, so there was we basically made it like a room. So you had a room that was probably about 10 feet long and about 6 feet deep. And we had shelving units on the back where you put all your stuff, each guy, and there was two Marines that lived in that little area.
Oh, wow.
And then each of them had a bunk bed. So you stored all your flak and your Kevlar and all your gear on the top rack, and you slept in the bottom rack, and then you had your shelving unit which had all your stuff, and then you slept in the bottom rack, and then you had a blanket you could throw over when it was sometimes you sleep during the day, you throw your blanket down or whatever, and then so each guy each little nook had two guys, and they had their own little flair about it. So and of course you had naked pictures on the wall of everything, and you had your own little wall that you could tape up pictures and letters with your family, and it was about 12 to 15 guys in a barracks room, a little common area where we had a little Xbox set up and whatnot, it wasn't really much to it, but you had to make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not the Ritz, but it felt like the Ritz to us, because hey, we can. We got this great picture of me and two of my buddies, and we're just watching our little DVD player, and we would just sit there, just watch movies and watch shows, and that's what you did.
That was primarily.
And then hey, let's go to the gym. Okay, let's go to chow hall, and and then when you weren't working, when you weren't on duty, basically, because if you're on duty, you were at the RDF, and that's what you did. You were up on the tower guarding, or you were in the office processing, or you were doing cell searches, or you were, we did everything from, we took them to the bathroom and we showered them, and it was a full-on prison.
Wow.
Not the most glamorous job,
right?
But kind of, back in 2006, there's this whole hearts and minds. We're trying to win the Iraqi people over, and not trying to get them to fight us, but so we had to treat them humanely. And again, that's when all the stuff about Grob came out. Treating detainees nicely, and there were times when we were questioning what we were doing. Like, why? I know that guy. We had a guy, literally, he survived a car bomb. He crashed his car before he could detonate. And that's how terrible of a terrorist he was. And, we had to treat him humanely. Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
I want to go and beat the shit out of that guy, to be honest with you.
Right.
And, I don't know, sometimes we would ship them off into, military intelligence, and they would do, whatever they were doing. I'm sure some things that the American public probably wouldn't like.
Right.
That's the way it was, you're in a combat zone. I was on the tower one day, and rocket flew over the RDF. And we were like, oh, shit. And it landed in the road outside the RDF and just stuck in the road. It was an RPG round. sticking in the road. Probably gonna have to call somebody for that.
Wow.
But yeah, I remember the first couple weeks we were there, and this is kind of one of those things as it progresses. I remember, there's a system that's, it's a kind of when a mortar attack is impending, a rocket attack, this alarm will go off, and it's like incoming, 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 and first few weeks you're there, probably first couple months you're there, you're like, run! And I remember my buddy running past me. He was much faster than I was. He was like, take cover! And sure enough, boom, boom, boom. Oh, again, that's another like realization of like, oh shit, there are people outside trying to kill us. And then month 5, 6, 7, you're like incoming, incoming, incoming. It's like, if it's my time, it's my time. If you're like, I'm walking to the chow hall, like I'm not gonna go run over that thing because it's probably not gonna protect me anyway. But we had a couple close calls. A couple guys. I think a couple of guys got peppered by some shrapnel and stuff like that. We were fortunate enough. Overall, we were very fortunate not to lose any Marines. We stayed pretty much on the detention facility,
okay.
or on the compound. We did go out on occasion and for prisoner transports and releases or whatnot. And fortunately, we never had to have any enemy contact. I think my closest we had a sister platoon. Or we had some Marines on PIT teams, which are police transition teams. So they would, they were training Iraqi policemen on checkpoints and how to maintain order. And I got to go out to Fallujah for a couple days and kind of do that. And we were in Fallujah, and so we're doing patrols and we're walking around, and I think that was probably 5 or 6 months in, and we hear a couple pop, 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 pop. And it's off in the distance. And, I'm not gonna worry about that. And I got a call on the radio from the COC, and they're like, "Whoa, are you in contact?" No, we're good, all good here. He's like, "You need to tell us when you have." Oh, sorry. Well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. And then sure enough, we went on the next patrol, and it was a checkpoint. I was looking down this long street, and it was these big buildings on the side, and it was a street down this way and a street down this way, and I was standing next to a highway divider, and I was looking down the street this way while our staff sergeant was talking to the checkpoint guys, and we were just kind of standing there, and all of a sudden I hear a pop, 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 and no shit, about probably 1.5 feet in front of me, 3 feet in front of me. And I don't think I ever jumped that far in my life, and I jumped behind that, and we never saw. One of the Marines shot a couple rounds down the road, but we never saw a shooter or anything like that. And so my dad always would joke, he's like, "Man, good thing that Iraqi was a terrible shot, or whoever he was, and necessarily Iraqi, but
yeah.
I was lucky. I mean." And another thing, my buddies were like, "Hey, you're 6'8". How did he miss you?" I was like, "I think I was standing like this. If I was standing like this, he probably would hit me." But I think somebody was looking out for me that day. But that was probably the closest I ever came to getting killed. But
wow.
So I was pretty fortunate.
That's pretty damn close.
And then you turn around and you attend a service for 18-year-old kid in a turret. He hits by a sniper. Have to send him home.
Oh man.
Those were the unfortunate ones, and unfortunately, I attended one too many of those, where kid, he load him up in a wooden coffin and send him on a helo, and he's going back home to a mother and a father. That's those were the we were right across from the medical facility, and when you saw the helos come in, and all the doctors and all the medical staff rush out, you just prayed that they could save that life, or that kid wasn't already gone, or so we would go down there and donate blood and stuff like that, and it was just it was I talk about the good times, but it's those unfortunate situations where you just know that kid he's not coming home. he's coming home in a box.
Wow. Wow.
So that was so we did that for 7 months. There's another time when I was in Fallujah where we were just kind of sitting around, barracks, kind of waiting for the next mission to go out, and the compound was starting getting some contact, some RPG, small arms fire, and we're running out, and our staff sergeant Garcia was like, "Bolinger, go grab the 240," and run back up the stairs and grab the 240 machine gun, and it was something out of the movies. I'll never forget this. If I'm running out, I've got my rifle, I'm full on gear and everything. I'm running out, and I mean, it was the door Humvee was open, and Staff Sergeant Garcia was in the turret ready to mount the 240. And I threw that 240 up at him like it was out of the movies. And he put it in there, put the pin in, put rounds in, and locked in. And I slid in the Humvee, and we tore out of there. And it was like that was probably like one of my coolest Marine moments
Right.
because it was just like, yeah, I'm a Marine. So, but yeah.
Well, what's it like? I just can't imagine. I know it's a man-made thing, but I just can't imagine the most unnatural place to be is in a war zone. I mean, I can't imagine what life is like in a war zone. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, you really. I keep going back to it, but you just rely on your buddies. It's a different lifestyle. Like I will never compare my experiences in a combat zone with, guys that lived on Iwo Jima or walk through, France and in World War II, because hell, we had internet. We were ordering stuff off of bodybuilding.com. We could hop on the phone and call home. So it was different, but it wasn't like we were sleeping in the dirt, where a lot of the guys that came before me even, they didn't have any of those amenities. So that was it was a humbling experience. I'll give you that. Not having the luxury of a shower that's in the same building, those are my hardships. And sometimes they shut down water, or sometimes the chow hall was out of food, so you had to eat MREs for a couple weeks, and but there's always that hinge of impending death.
right.
You never know when they're going to pull your number.
Right.
And go back to some of those kids that were out there and they were doing patrols on a daily basis, and but yeah, that you just have to find ways to cope. You can't always get a hold of mom and dad, and you can't always live as luxuriously as you would in the States, but it's again, it's another culture shock, and you just kind of learn to cope. And as Marines, that's what you did, and I would guarantee that the Marines you talk to from Vietnam versus World War II, they found ways to cope, and guys in Vietnam found ways to cope, and then so did we. And granted, everybody had different luxuries at different times, and we just used. Sometimes we do a blackout on the base for whatever reason. Again, some kid got killed or something like that. They would shut down everything on the base, and you wouldn't be able to call home. And that was back when the news would say there's been U.S. troops killed in Ramadi, Iraq. And I remember a couple times my parents were like, they didn't know if they were going to get that call.
Right. Oh.
And you think about all the soldiers and Marines and sailors and all the guys that were on that base and gals on that base. They had all families waiting, and they didn't know if they were going to ever get a call. So, especially if they called home every single.
Yeah. Right. Attaboy.
So.
Wow. Was it a good sized base? I mean, roughly how many people?
Yeah.
In that.
I couldn't tell you how many people,
Yeah.
but there were several. There were a couple. There was Army and Marine Joint
Oh, okay.
Base, so there was both the Army and the Marines, and I mean, it was a good size. It was the main, I guess FOB, you call it, Forward Operating Base, for Ramadi. That's where all the operations came out.
Oh, okay.
So again, they had outposts throughout the city, but that's where all the supplies came in, and that's where all the troops were housed, and that's obviously where the detention facility was. So I mean, it was a good sized facility.
Okay.
We probably had to walk about. I would say our barracks from the detention facility was about a quarter mile.
Oh wow. Okay.
So we walked. We had this old bus, the Ramadi crud, that we'd drive around, and we'd see if we could jump it. Which I was usually the driver, so got yelled at a couple times for that. So I think you talked a little bit. You mentioned about being in a war zone is you kind of find ways to entertain yourself, whether it's appropriate or not appropriate. For example, there was a lot of bets that I took for doing stupid things, like running. I ran around in my skivvies around the barracks a couple times. Got caught by a couple sergeant majors in the Army. But me and my buddy said we probably saved lives that day because there was a convoy that had just pulled in. We lived right across from the chow hall, so we got all the traffic that, convoys would pull in, go eat chow, and then go right back out. The guys who were doing it every day. And this giant 6'8" white guy running around in his skivvies and sneakers around the building. And these guys were just laughing. They were just dying laughing. Because something you don't see in a war zone every day is some asshole running around in his skivvies. They get back to the barracks and, stop! Sure enough, Sergeant Major and his Sergeant Major buddy were just happening to leave the chow hall. And so we kind of got a little trouble for that. But you find ways to entertain yourself, and you find ways to, cope with being in a, again, just never know when you're going to get hit or when your buddy's going to get hit, and you just kind of find ways to just deal with it.
Did they have R&R breaks during your
so
where you
not
got
really.
off? No,
it
just
was. I
straight
went
up.
7 months straight. There was a couple of guys who got to do some R&R in Baghdad, but that's about as far as R&R went. We were just so short-staffed. Basically, you couldn't send guys off to do R&R because we needed Marines there to.
Wow.
We were, I think at the time, we averaged probably over 100 detainees in that facility at a time, and if they ever really knew how outnumbered, how much they outnumbered us.
Right.
I mean, it was always luckily we never had an incident because it was when they rolled in, we scared the shit out of them, and I think that was the purpose behind that. Was like, we're not gonna F with you, don't F with us because we will shoot you and we will kill you. Like that was so we never had anybody try to escape. I think I had one situation where a guy tried to get physical with me and he got put down like that because we were just waiting for that one guy to do that, and he tried to, and kind of made him an example of like, this is not the way this is gonna run. But
Wow.
but yeah, we had a good crew, and we were good at our jobs, and we never had an incident, and nobody got in any really big trouble, and we did steal some license plates off some cars, which we turned out we weren't supposed to do. So I still have my license plates. So, but no, we did our jobs, and I'm proud of the Marines that we did. So
Yeah.
So then came back in October of 2006. Again, flying in Bangor, Maine. I mean, homecoming. I mean, you'd think we friggin' won World War II.
Was that that whole process a reverse culture shock for you, coming back really to civilization, if you will, or?
Yeah, there were parts of it. I think everybody, whether you're in combat for all 7 months, or you do like I did, where you had just like these little snippets. I think everybody suffers a little bit of that, maybe that post traumatic stress. Some obviously more severe than others. Your heightened sense of awareness. And I still find myself doing it to this day, where you're looking up at the top of buildings, especially with the current events that happen. But I remember for a few months after, I was always checking windows and checking doors, and if somebody popped a balloon or something like that, I would jump a little bit. I think it's just that.
Right.
That's been drilled into your brain for so long. You just kind of have to live it. but got back to wonderful reception with the family and everything. I did a little bit probably too much drinking when I got back again.
Did you?
I think it was. I think that was my coping mechanism, which
enough.
Fortunately I didn't dive too far down into that hole. But I think again there was a little bit of coping there for me. Is well, now I'm out, and now I'm back to the world, if you will, and what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
So, transitioned really back to traditional reservist life, and started going to school, and that was pretty much the life after. So that was my one combat deployment was in 2006, and I got a buddy that lives here in Windsor. That's 5 minutes away, and we served together. We weren't buddies when we came in, and now we're friends, and that relationship will never die.
Yeah.
We just had our 10-year battery reunion.
Oh, really?
It
Yeah.
was really cool to see the guys that you went to war with.
Yeah,
You did.
yeah, right. Yeah.
We went to war with these guys, and nobody can ever take that away
That's
from
right.
us. And we were really proud of what we did, and it wasn't the most glamorous or, we weren't, fighting firefights, but again, we had a job to do, and we did it.
Necessary job, yeah.
And we were really proud of that. So that was my combat deployment in 2006, and then from 2006 to 2014, served as a traditional, reservist, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, and I finished school and was able to get my bachelor's in recreation tourism and hospitality.
In those situations, are you able to use the GI Bill for school, or
Yes.
is there? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I was very fortunate to have that. I started out with the REAP. It was called a REAP program, Reserve Education Assistance Program. Started at Front Range Community College, got all my regular courses done, and then switched over to the post 9/11 GI Bill. And I got out of school with zero debt. So
Nice.
I was
very good.
Very fortunate that I was able to utilize that because I had done the combat deployment, and it's kind of sad to see some reservists now that will spend 6 years never deploy, and they don't really have those benefits.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is kind of unfortunate. But was able to put myself through school and get a good job and whatnot, and still maintain my my service. And see, when I got back home in 2006, I was a Lance Corporal still, and then got promoted, I think, in 2007 to Corporal. And we transitioned back to an artillery battery. We were redesignated as Quebec Battery, 5th Battalion, 14th Marines. Still out of Buckley Air Force Base, so that was a whole new transition for me. I'd never shot an artillery round in my life.
Yeah, right.
So when we were, when they said, "Hey, we're actually going to shoot artillery again," I was like, "What does that entail? I've never done that before." So that was a whole new learning process for me on how to talk on the radio for fire missions, because I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
And we did that for the remainder of my career, and I started out sitting in the back of a truck calling fire missions in Guernsey, Wyoming, and 29 Palms, Camp Pendleton, Fort Hood, Texas, Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Just sitting in the back of a Humvee calling fire missions and relaying information back to the Fire Direction Control Center, and troubleshooting radios. And so those were some really good times as well, because I was able to take on more leadership roles and train Marines. Some miserable nights out in Guernsey, Wyoming, though. Oh my God. Cold, snowy, windy nights. We had to shut down operations because there was this, we were in a tornado warning or watch or whatever it was, but hailstorms, and you're like, this is miserable. And those were only over during the weekends. Those were 3 or 4 day drill periods. So it was like, this is terrible. I'm gonna go back to my office job. I slowly kind of moved up in the ranks, made sergeant, and I was a platoon sergeant. As a sergeant, usually it's a staff sergeant billet, and I was a sergeant. Got to that was probably 2000. 2012, I was promoted to sergeant and got to take on more leadership roles as the section leader, and then again platoon sergeant, and then promoted to staff sergeant, which is that's when you get your rocker. You're a staff NCO now, so you're in the secret club for assholes is what my buddies called it. Once you're in the staff NCO ranks, you're in the secret club for assholes. And then that was about 2013, and then 2014. In the spring of 2014, we went to a training exercise to Morocco.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, yes. But so we get there, and I'm supposed to be I'm on dance party, so I'm getting there, making sure everything is signed. We got this convoy from Agadir to Cap Dra. It's like a 6 or 7 hour convoy ride, and I mean that's just flat desert. But,
Yeah.
I mean, this is experience,
Right.
Haven't deployed since 2006, so it was kind of nice for Marines to get outside of the U.S. It was supposed to be a joint training exercise between the Moroccan army and the U.S. forces. So we get to this compound and we set everything up. There's Navy SEALs out there. There's Marine Recon. There's infantry Marines, artillery Marines. There's HIMARS rockets. I mean, everything is out there. Sitting in the desert for about a week, and CO says, "Well, hey guys, we gotta hold off. There's some stuff going on between the State Department and the Moroccan government and the French government, and because there was some stuff going on in Morocco at the time." And we're like, "Okay, well, we're Marines. We hurry up and wait. That's kind of what we do." And 3 days later, they said, "Psh."
Really? Huh.
We were supposed to be there for, I think, 3 weeks, and we were there for about a week and a half. Back up. So I guess what happened was the French government had sided with these rebels or something that were against the Moroccan government, and the U.S. State Department sided with the French government, and that pissed the Moroccan king off. So the Moroccan king was like, out. We had to pack up all our shit, drive it back to Agadir, load it all back into ships. I mean, it was a mess. And then, unfortunately, my wife had a medical issue. We had a miscarriage. So I had to leave early from that operation and fly back home. Lucky I was able to fly back with all my Marines. I was supposed to stay on rear party. But it was a mess. And I think that was the point where I was like, I was away from my family.
Yeah, right.
And me and my wife were struggling to, before we figured out what the issues. That was the second miscarriage, actually. And both times when she had found out, I was at drills. So I think I had to really take a look at my life and saying, I've got to choose whether I'm going to stay in the Marines and the reserves or kind of move on. And so I got out in 2014 as a staff sergeant, and I don't regret. I miss it. Again, I miss that camaraderie.
Yeah.
And I miss the brotherhood, and I miss but I don't miss freezing my ass off in Guernsey, Wyoming, and I don't miss all the BS that you have to deal with, and uniform inspections and things like that. But part of that stuff is what makes you, what Marines.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my career in a nutshell. But I mean, there's a billion stories that I can tell, and maybe one day I'll sit down and tell all the stories. My wife and my buddy's wife have heard every single story multiple times, and my kids probably will eventually. But no, that was great. So I got out in 2014, and I had already graduated school, and I was already started my career. And that was the other thing too, was I applaud the guys who can stay in for 20 years and do the same thing. But I was just like, man, I really want to focus on my career and more importantly my family.
Right, sure.
That was my priority at the time.
Understandable, yeah. So you got your degree in
recreation, sport, and recreation, tourism, and hospitality.
Okay.
From University of Northern Colorado.
Okay.
And really, so Lived here in Windsor originally in 2011 while I finished up my degree, and then got a job with Great Outdoors Colorado in 2012. Started out as a temporary employee. I had applied for a job, for a full-time job, but they were like, well, you're not in school yet, but I was working like 4 jobs at the time. I was working 312s at the Walmart Distribution Center. I was working at GoCo as a part-time employee, and I think I was still helping Lance in brush, and I was doing something else too. I just had a lot going on. I was still in the Marines.
Yeah, wow.
And well, anyway, GoCo called me and said, well, we can't give you a full-time job. However, we'd like to bring you on as a temporary employee. Got on as a temporary employee, went down there for 3 days a week while I was finishing up my degree, and then once I graduated, they gave me a full-time job. So I spent 4 years there, which was great. Did some work in some private industry, working at a private community, which I hated that job, and then worked in construction for a while. And then when this job opened up, I was an intern here at in 2010. Full-time job opened up here in Windsor, and applied for it. I knew a lot of the staff because they were still here, and now here I am. So I have my wife and my 2 daughters, and I'm living the dream right now. I really am.
Yeah, good. Excellent.
I have a great life, and I don't regret any part of my service or anything like that. And one of the kids at school, or one of my boss's kids, something came about where he wanted to be a Marine, and he found out that I was a Marine. So he could go to school dressed up as what you want to be. So I gave him a couple of my covers and my flashlight from a flashlight that I had and showed him my picture, and he took it to school for his this is what I want to be. And I'm just really, that really was moving to me, because I had this young, whatever he was, I think he's probably 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he wants to be a Marine, and just part of me thinks I can make an impression on that kid. And sometimes I tell kids, do you really want to be in the Marines? But it's a great feeling to pass on your kind of memory. And so I went back to my mom's, and I still had a whole bunch of stuff there, and I found my original backpack from boot camp that they issue you for, and some of the other stuff that I had gotten when I was a kid, and some of the stuff I used to run around the farm with and play soldier or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And I gave it to Grant, and he thought it was the greatest thing. And
Very cool.
Maybe one day he'll decide to become a Marine, but I always enjoy talking to the Marines, and I got my pictures up in my office, and I look up and maybe I could still do it. I'm like, no, I got a pretty good life now, but I really enjoyed it. It was a great time in my life, and again, those relationships that you build and those memories that you create, good or bad, are what really makes being in the Marines worth it. And I got my moto tattoo, and yeah, got it. Let's see, I found the receipt when I was going through my mom's stuff. I was going through all the just random papers that I had, and I had found the receipt. Let's see, I flew home on I got on my birthday. I got on it would have been my 19th birthday. I got my moto tattoo from a shop in Fort Collins. So it was funny, I had just found that receipt, and I was like, oh, I got it on my birthday. So back when tattoos were a little cheaper than they are these days. But no, it was great. I really enjoyed it, and don't regret any part of my service.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we start winding down this interview, I'm sure we only got the tip of the iceberg of your story, but is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about? Any of the stories that have kind of floated to the top as you've been sitting here, so that ideally we round out your story as best we can as in these conditions? Or do you think by and large we captured everything that you really wanted to talk about this evening?
I think so. There are a ton of stories that, little stories like the time I was in the tower, and we had this one kid who was apparently a cheerleader, and he was doing his baton twirling act, and I mean, little stories like that again that kind of make that experience. But no, I think we caught most everything.
Okay.
Just because, again, I could talk for hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
But I really just wanted to get down to that. This is what I did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these were my experiences, and if I could show that to somebody who was, like, this is what it was like. These were my stories that
Right.
that I want to put on. And I think probably keeping the memory of my dad alive. I think that was a really that's really important to me, because he was my biggest fan.
Wow.
And he. I mean, if there was a program where dads could join the Marines, he probably would have at the time. And like I said, I'll never forget when he was so upset, and then he turned out to be my biggest supporter.
Wow.
He would write letters, and he would send care packages. I mean, guys would wait for his letters, and this was in 2006 where we deployed. Guys would wait for his letters and read them, because he was a funny. He'd call me names, and he would tell these funny stories. Just because that's the kind of life they lived. He lived large, and
Yeah.
he told me this story about how he'd walked home drunk from the golf club, and he came back with this giant bundle of wooden stakes. And they were in the garage when I got home, and this was this bundle of stakes because it was all county roads, and I was like these survey stakes or something like that.
Okay.
He walked along the road and picked every one of them sons of bitches up and hauled them home. And guys would read these stories, and he was like, "Your dad is the funniest guy," and that's the way he was, and just the way he supported not only me but all my buddies and all the Marines in the unit. Whatever he could do, he would do it for the Marines.
Wow.
Because he was that big of a supporter, and combined with my mom and how she supported him. I couldn't be more of a lucky guy.
Wow. So that's wonderful.
Kid.
Wow.
So.
Well, the last question I always like to ask with these interviews, and you've kind of answered, I think, throughout the interview, but as you look back on your time in the Marines and that deployment and such, how did it change your life, affect your life, play a role in your life? Or, it's the standard question, and this part of it probably doesn't play into it. Or was it just simply a chapter in your life to date? How would you?
It's definitely not a chapter.
Yeah.
It did really shape, who I am and what I've become. It gave me a real direction in life where, out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and kind of gave me that, okay, this is the Marines, and this is part of my life now, but now I'm going to go try this. And then I went and did that. And it gave me that confidence to do that, and gave me those leadership skills. And you talk about all the, the intangibles, the leadership skills and motivation and all of those, work ethic and things like that, and that's certainly part of it. And but just the fact that I accomplished becoming a Marine when people told me that I would never be a Marine, I think that was the biggest takeaway, I guess you could say, from my time, because you told me I couldn't, and I spent 10 years, and I did a damn good job of it too. And I went over and I did a job that whatever 97% of the population will never experience.
That's right.
And I will always take that. And it's taught me humility, and gave me additional personality, and gave me certain skills that I take to the workplace every day. Where there's some things I don't bullshit around. If it was my way, we would do it the Marine way, but unfortunately you can't do that. But yeah, no, it was definitely not here it is.
Yeah, right.
It really did shape my life and really kind of define who I am.
Wow.
I would definitely say that, because I am so proud of that.
Yeah, sure. As you should be.
I get the chance to tell. I guess there are times where I'm more humble than other times, but when people ask me, like, you're a Marine or you're an ex-Marine, of course I correct them.
Yeah,
There are
right.
no such thing as
Yeah, right.
ex-Marines.
Yeah.
I love telling people that, yeah, I'm a Marine, because you know what, I earned that title, and that is the most coveted thing that the Marine has, is the title of earning Marine, and the things that I did and the things that I were able to accomplish. And there are certainly more decorated Marines out there than me, but we're all part of that fraternal order of Marines.
Mm-hmm.
We go talk to the veterans on Veterans Day, and you just share that bond, even if it's a guy that served in Korea and or served in Vietnam or something like that. That all gets washed away when you're just Marines.
Yeah, yeah.
You served during this time,
Yeah.
and I served during this
Yeah.
time. I did this, and this, and you may have done 50 million other things, but you're Marines, and nobody can ever take that away
Right,
from me, and
right.
I'll always have that. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you for sitting down today to tell your story, but just as important or more important, thank you for your service to our country.
Thanks, Brad. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. So this is my original lightweight combat helmet that I was issued, and it had the Desert Mar pack cover over it, and this is what I wore every day in Iraq until one day I went out on a detainee release. So I loaded up the 7-ton. I was a radio operator, and I was a driver, so I did everything. Got the truck ready. We loaded up the detainees, put on the machine gun and everything, rolled out the gates, did the release, no issues, rolled back into the gates, I parked it outside of the armory, went to go turn in my rifle, so I went to go park it, and I didn't put my helmet back on, and I didn't realize where I had left it. Went and parked the truck, walked back, hey, is my helmet in here? My Kevlar in here? No? Where the hell's my Kevlar? Walk back out to the truck. I leave it in the truck. I leave it on the hood or something like that. I was like, shit, I don't know where. I was like, I'm in a lot of trouble here. These things ain't cheap. And we were in a combat zone, so they didn't grow on trees out there. And was walking back, and I had set it on the tire of the 7-ton, and I had run over it. And this thing I've kind of pushed it back a little bit, but this thing looked like a friggin' taco. Like, I ran over it with the up arm 7-ton, and it crushed it, and you can see how we just smashed it. And so I was like, shit, I gotta tell Staff Sergeant Becker that I ran over my Kevlar. So I was like, hey, Staff Sergeant, I kind of ran over my Kevlar, and he gave me a good ass chew, and he's like, you know what? Put it on. I was like, okay, obedience to orders. And he made me wear this taco-shaped, goofy, all afternoon. It was like 105, 110 degrees that day, and usually we were just in blouses when in the RDF. But he made me wear that stupid thing, like, mashed on my head all day. Finally, I got a new one, but that's my favorite story from Iraq. And then I do have this flag. We had a really cool thing where we had a calendar, basically, and guys could sign up to fly their flags over Ramadi. So I was fortunate enough to be able to fly a flag over Ramadi, and the date's inside, I think, on this, but I got to fly my American flag, and this is kind of my one take-home piece from the being able to fly my flag. And I've got this really cool picture, actually, of me standing on top of a 7-ton that my mom keeps up in her school, actually, holding the M240 machine gun, and the American flag is flying in the background. And I don't know if it's this. I don't think it's this flag, but it's just a really neat picture of me, and my mom keeps it up. And
Very cool.
Really so
Yeah.
that's the story behind that guy. So this is the original recruit manual that they give you, and basically your first week of boot camp. And this is Marine Corps knowledge, and all my notes about the function check on the M16 A2 rifle, and Marine Corps history. There's different versions of it. First aid, general military subjects.
Wow.
And this is all stuff that you are expected to learn in boot camp. And when you're standing outside in the chow line, you carry this in your pocket I think this is the one that you carry in your pocket, and you would just go, and you would pick a topic, and you would just go, and just recite military or Marine history. So you would just, you would do that on my cool drawings there. Because I wasn't paying attention during 18.4. But the 4 life-saving steps, you would rehearse those. You talk about military history, and you would just stand in line and just drill history. I've got all kinds of the Aramati Iraq, the pocket reference maps that they give you, that they issue you, and these are kind of again those pieces like, okay, here's your map, like here's how to defend against an IED, or this is how you do this, and here's that. I mentioned that Iraqi license.
All right, yeah. Oh, very cool.
We took off of a old Iraqi vehicle. Hopefully that guy didn't get in trouble. Hopefully he got released. I got to go to language school. So they what's this guy? Radio Operator's Handbook, Old School Radio Operator's Handbook. I got to go to language school at I can't remember the place in California. And it'll come to me later. But let me find that picture. This is the photo. This is my promotion picture of me when I was a sergeant, and I was putting in my staff NCO package, my staff sergeant, did that secret club for assholes. I was going to put it in my office, but my wife says no. No. But went to language school and got a whole bunch of different language stuff. This is a neat. They had this place on base where you could get your own Velcro patch for the Kevlar vest. So this is my Lance Corporal Bolinger, Luke S, Alpha 114, our Ramadi, U.S. Marines. Like, we needed to be reminded that we were U.S. Marines, but apparently anything with Marines.
So in language school to learn the local language, or
learn basically conversational Arabic.
Okay. And what would you guys do? Who would you use in the prison with the guards? Would you bring in Iraqis, or was it trained Marines?
It was a little bit of both. So we would have a basic language skills, like stop and go and what are you doing, and be quiet and put your hands down or put your heads down, stuff like that. And then we would have interpreters that we'd have 24/7. This is a culture smart card. This has some of those basic phrases that we would use, how to address, OGUF, stop, and so you actually picked it up pretty quickly because you were using it every day.
Okay.
And then we would have interpreters that were part of our unit, that we would have the in-depth conversations, and then military intelligence had their own.
Right.
So, I guess this is how old I am. I guess this is a tactical field message book, and this is called the Yellow Canary, and this is how they used to do messages. Huh. So it's a carbon copy.
Right.
So it has the Morse code, and then it shows you how.
So they were still using Morse code and such.
We didn't use Morse code. We learned a little bit of it, but it was all voice communications.
Okay.
But this is when you had runners. When you hear in the movies, runner. Yeah, this is what they got.
Really?
They got the radio operator would take a message, and what's its urgency, and who's it going to go to, what's the day, what's the is it unclassified, is it confidential, secret, or top secret, continue attack at 9:30, report objective when consolidated. That's the example. So radio operator would sit in his little radio operator hut or in the back of a truck or something, take the message down and rip it off, and runner, and he would go send it off, to the front line, basically.
Did that require you getting a security classification then?
Yeah, so I had a secret clearance.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Secret clearance, which wasn't you can get top secret clearance, but all radio operators, because we deal with the crypto have to have a secret clearance, so that enables the radios to talk to just other radios that have
Gotcha.
the same cryptos. And then there's a copy of the Quran,
Uh,
which I haven't quite gotten through yet.
yeah,
but
is that right?
one day I will. And then this was our. So back in 2006, that's
Jeez.
when the IEDs really became an issue. So they gave us a lot of classes on IEDs, and they actually set up a course on Camp Ramadi on how to spot IEDs. That they had a little course. You'd walk it and be like, "Oh, there's a wire." there."
Really? Wow.
Then the EOD guy would explain a little bit how to, okay, this is what this wire would be used for, and pressure plates, and that's when they were really starting to get creative
Oh man.
with what they were doing. A couple more things here. It's amazing the stuff that you keep.
Yeah. Oh sure. It's a good thing you did. That's
Yeah.
there's a lot of history there.
There's some stuff I wish I would have kept.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So here's that bracelet. Oh, this one. What's this one? This is that bracelet that girl made me when I was in Thanksgiving
Okay, uh-huh.
in California.
Right.
And I've kept it all these years. So this is one of the first mementos, I guess, that I got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got some bracelets, and this was my final patch here. My Staff Sergeant Bolinger, Quebec Battery 514. With my, a lot of people are like, "What's A negative?" Because civilians, they don't even know their blood type or their social security number, but those are things that are drilled into you from day one.
Right.
So.
Right.
And then people will say, "Oh, that's my blood type." I'm like, "Why do you need your blood type?" Well,
Yeah.
in case you need a quick blood transfusion, you don't want that. The other thing I was just telling some coworkers the other day is that I have a G-Shock watch that my dad bought me at a Walmart right before I deployed. They came out right before we deployed, before we flew out, and as a G-Shock watch, and it's upstairs actually, but I still have it and it still works.
And
And that was 2000 and that was 2005 is when he bought me, 2006 bought me that watch. So that watch is now 12 years old, still ticking.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's been through 2 different countries. It's been through my 7-month deployment. It's been through countless field ops, swimming. I mean, that thing's been through every type of weather that it can stand. It still goes. So I think I could make a pretty sweet G-Shock commercial.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, and then you got some challenge coins that I've collected throughout the years from different Marines. I got Corpsman. Doc Torres gave me this challenge coin when I left the Marine Corps. He had gotten it from one of his commanders, but this is the Naval Medical Center in Portsmouth. He got this coin and gave it to me when I left.
Oh wow!
So it's just, again, you don't talk about the corpsmen at all, but those are some of the best dudes in the world because they might as well be Marines. And they're not talked about as Marines, but the devil docs as we call them. So.
And of course, talk a little bit about that. That's pretty special.
So these are letters that I've got that I got throughout boot camp, and there might be some letters here that I got when I was in Iraq too. I mean, everybody from my Uncle John, all my buddies. Here's my letters from my dad. The big stack of them.
Yeah.
And they're really funny because that's when he was just learning how to type.
Okay.
There's probably more cuss words in here than anything. I mean, just family, friends, and I think this one mostly my mom's letters, and this is a funny one. So this is my cousin who later joined the Marines. He was with 3-3. He deployed a couple times, but the drill instructors get the mail and they pass it out, so they see this.
Okay.
So JP, what we call him, he decided to write "Real Men Go Army" on that side of the envelope, and I got slayed for that because of the kid JP. But my brothers.
Oh, wow.
There's more from my mom and dad. My mom in her perfect cursive.
Yeah.
My old teachers. Colonel, I think it was Colonel John Skelly. That's another one I got in trouble for too, because it was like, oh, I'm trying to be impressive with your colonel uncle, grandma.
Oh, wow. Oh, what a treasure.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, just everybody. I mean, just all sorts of people. At one point, wrote me. And my dad was probably the sappiest one. I mean, sappier than my girlfriend at the time. Aunt and uncle. Guy who sold seed to my dad was a good family friend. I mean, pretty special. And I was just going through them and, just kind of reading them. And
Nice.
I'm like, this is pretty cool. So I'll never get rid of those. Maybe be around until grandkids or great grandkids.
Yeah, that's
decide
right.
to get rid of them someday. So maybe I'll do something with them and get them all. But I think I haven't found them yet, or I fear that they were thrown away. But all the moto males.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I hope I didn't, but those may be gone. But I still got the video from Dad and all his letters from boot camp. So.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.